Hello, folks. Welcome back to Reality Check with Arvind Swaminathan. I know there's been a slight delay in this. I had hoped to get it done a little earlier, but, well, there were circumstances, health and otherwise, the cold weather and everything else. However, here goes. Main topic today is Ram Mandir, or the Ram Temple. And it's been one heck of a bringing together of the whole of India. Nothing like this seen since the independence movement which brought us independence from the British colonial rule. Why? How does it happen? It's not just here, it's happened everywhere else. Europe was a fragmented area until Christianity. The whole of the Middle East was just warring tribes killing one another until Islam came in and gave them an alternative. Why did it do that? Because there was no other religion. Judaism had been thrown out of that area in the year 139 AD by the Romans. There was no other thing there. Christianity hadn't even begun. So Islam had a clear field. It took over. Now then, ever since then, empires have come up and then disappeared. Why? You had the Egyptian empires, you had the Greeks, the Romans, then you had the European colonial empires, but they all crumbled. Why? There was something wrong. Something not quite as it should be. Now there was an Indian empire long before Islam and Christianity took over. It crumbled, it decayed for certain reasons which we can go into, but it takes a great deal of time. And now, all of a sudden, there is a resurgence. Why? Obviously, fate had decided that there was something in there worth preserving, something which the world is lacking at this moment. It had to come out again. Now, this Ram Temple, or Ram Mandir, has, as I said a little earlier, brought the whole of India together again in the same way as the independence movement under Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi ji. If you remember that, what was his way of bringing the people together? Every one of his meetings started as a prayer meeting, meaning he was invoking religion. Now you had religion on one side and you had Subhash Chandra Bose, Netaji on the other, with the Indian National Army. It wasn't the one or the other which gave us independence, but the two of them working together. The one without the other would have been meaningless. And as Mr. Clement Attlee admitted in 1950, the British were in a hurry to get out because the British Indian Army had refused to fire, even though they were under orders, to fire on civilians in both Karachi and then the naval mutiny in Mumbai, or Bombay as it was then, Dufferin for instance. The British troops from the Indian Army fired above their heads to make sure nobody got hurt. And this is why. Because the British were afraid, supposing the rest of the Indian Army also revolted, what would happen to the very, very few British officers who were in charge of that army? And if that happened, what would happen to the British citizens who wanted to leave, who were trying to get back to England? Now, ever since independence, what has happened? The most unfortunate leadership that we could ever have got together is what we ended up with. And Nehru, I don't know why he hated Hindus so much. He put into our constitution one particular article which says you may not teach Hinduism anywhere. Not in schools, not in colleges, not in university, not in temples, nowhere. Why did he do that? He was trying to eradicate Hinduism from this country. The largest Hindu population was at war. He was at war against, trying to remove us. Why? Look, I've grown up in a Hindu household. But where could I learn about Hinduism? No place, nowhere. Why not? I was not allowed to. The law said I mustn't. The Constitution said I mustn't. If so, how do I learn about it? Not possible. But you could learn Islam and you could learn about Christianity in schools, colleges, universities, anywhere. I know I went to Christian schools in my very young days. And every week there'd be 2 or 3 classes. I think they were called catechism classes. I knew a fair amount of Christianity, but nothing about Hinduism. That is why it was so important for this particular government to bring us together again and to make Hindus wake up that, look, you don't have to be apologetic anymore. This is the old Gandhian principle again. Invoke religion to bring people together, to work together for progress. Because until now, each state has been warring against the next. Why? I want this, I want, no, I want this. You can't have this. Now we have to understand that this is one country. And to bring us together using religion, every news channel yesterday, had nothing but this: the Ram Temple consecration ceremony. There were dignitaries there, both Indian and a few foreign, not many foreign ones, but the main idea was to bring India together. Now, unfortunately, the opposition is still trying to pull us apart. Why? That's why they didn't turn up. And I'm hoping the Hindu population will give them one hell of a bashing, because that's what they deserve. The opposition has been trying very hard to pull us apart. The old British policy, which Nehru employed, Indira Gandhi employed, and the present opposition is employed: divide and rule. How? How did this happen? Look, I was brought up in Lucknow in UP. Just opposite or not far from Ayodhya is a place called Faizabad, which I used to go through quite often, because my uncle lived not far away, about 5 miles from there. But I never went to Ayodhya. Why? Nobody told me about its importance. Its importance in Hinduism. Nobody knew. And Faizabad has a Muslim sounding name. So, I never went there. Not to Ayodhya. I was supposed to go there once, but something happened and that part of the trip was avoided. It had to be cut out. How many people knew of the importance of that little township there? Now they do. You see, the first thing I learned about Hinduism, and I've said this for decades without realizing why, I said Hinduism is a way of life. It's not just a religion, it's a way of life. Now, I think it was 1987. There was an epic series on TV, the Ramayana. Now, I used to watch that. I missed the first 6 or 7 because I was not in Delhi. But after that, every Sunday, the whole of this country sat around watching this. The roads of every town and city were virtually empty. Nobody was going anywhere. They were all watching this. Now you understand why the opposition now, though they were in government then, was trying to destroy Hinduism. They did not want the people of this country to come together. So one, you're not allowed to learn about Hinduism, and active steps taken to ensure that the people of this country remained apart. Nehru brought in a Hindu civil code, even though he was empowered to bring in a uniform civil code by the Constituent Assembly in 1948. Why? Why did he bring in Article 370 and 35A in 1954? The Maharaja of Kashmir signed the letter of accession without any preconditions whatsoever. So why was this special status which Nehru dreamed up? Why? Because Nehru never believed that we were an independent country. We were never meant to be, not under him. The British colonial empire had left us. They've been sent out. And now Nehru believed that India was his colony and he was a colonial power. And his family have continued that trend. Nehru also divided India into states based on language. Why? To keep us apart. 15 states, which included all sorts of languages in some of them. For instance, Madras state or Madras province as it was then included Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Karnataka and Kerala. Now as long as you had those provinces, you could say Hindi can be a national language. The moment you divide them according to language, how can you even think of Hindi or even one single language to replace all of them? You can't. So he ensured that we never come together. And Indira Gandhi did nothing to stop that happening. The moment she tells people in Tamil Nadu, you have to learn Hindi, and they were already learning it in schools. A few buses were burned, there were riots. The day after that, those people learning Hindi in school were told, as of now you learn everything in Tamil, and you learn Tamil. Hindi you want to learn, go outside, do it privately. There you go again. Even today, the opposition just turned down every opportunity to attend this event, the consecration of the Ram temple, or Ram Mandir in Ayodhya. Why? Now, if that isn't a show of anti-Hindu philosophy, what else is it? Total intolerance. I've said before, Hinduism is the only democratic religion. All the others are totalitarian. Whether it's Judaism, whether it's Islam or Christianity, there is only one way. Now Hinduism says, whichever way you choose, all of them lead to that one place, God Himself. And until He Himself comes and tells us this is the only way, as far as we're concerned, it's all encompassing. And that is what is happening. You can worship Brahmaji, Lord Brahma, Vishnu, or Mahesh or Shiva. Or you can worship Ram and Sita, Krishna, Lord Hanuman, the goddess Mahalakshmi, or the goddess Saraswati, or Durga Mata, or Kali Mata, or Santoshi Ma, anyone. As far as we're concerned, they're all God or goddesses. There is no distinction. All roads lead to that one supreme God, Lord Brahma. This is what and the first time I could understand so much of this was watching that serial on TV, the Ramayana. Now the Ramayana itself, it tells you the way Lord Ram conducted himself throughout life. Therefore, Hinduism was a code of conduct. The straight and narrow path, stick to it. Whatever sacrifices you have to make, you punish yourself if necessary. No problem, you have to do it. This is the Hindu way of life. Possibly other religions also say the same thing. But who sticks to them? Nobody. For instance, I know Christianity also says, the 10 Commandments, one of them is honor thy father and thy mother. How many people in the West honor their parents? Do they even look after most of them in their old age? Or they packed off to old age homes? Unlike in our society, mostly they are looked after at home. This is the difference between animals and humans. That once they grow up, they go off on their own. We, humans, are supposed to stay together throughout our lives. Now, in the absence of learning about all this, what happened to what we call our upbringing, our sanskar, or the values that we should have in our, the floppies in our little brains? How do we behave? What do we believe in? Honesty, integrity, anything. Now the other thing the Ramayana taught me was this. Above all, integrity. This is what Lord Ram stood for. Integrity. There's no getting away from it. Now, as I watched that serial, I realized, hell, this is a perfect course in management. Management, what does it teach you? Above all, integrity. 2, leadership. 3, getting your team together for one common goal or one common aim. It's there. If you see that serial, there are about 50 or 60 episodes. But that is what it entails. But where would we have learnt all this? We were not allowed to learn. But once that serial came in, I wonder how it got through the censors. Because the way it brought the whole country together, as I said, the streets were empty during the time of the serial. People just gathered around TV sets waiting for the next episode. Not just this one, but also the Mahabharata. Same thing happened. Now, the only other place you could have learnt it, which I found out in the 80s, was a comic book. You know which one? The Amar Chitra Katha. That had the Ramayana and the Mahabharata in it, but in comic form. And I only realized it because I was in charge of a staff club and people were fighting to get hold of this. Because they also did not know much about Hinduism. And this was the only place they could learn in layman's language. Not Sanskrit or a language which they don't understand, or in riddles, or in verse, but in plain, ordinary, common or garden language, which anybody could understand. Now, the whole problem that we've had in this country is fragmentation. The British came to this country and said, the Mughals taught us architecture. How? Why? Even though they came up from the south, they saw our temples there and the ruins of a whole lot of them, which had been destroyed by Islamic armies, like Tipu Sultan and so on. The Mughals had one principle. If they went anywhere, they first plundered the temple, then destroyed them, and built mosques on top of them. So you never saw any Indian architecture, because all the temples were gone. Look around northern India, how many temples, old temples, do you find? Very, very few, if any. That was one of the reasons why this particular temple means so much. It was the cradle of Hinduism, and yet the temple itself wasn't there anymore. It had been demolished. Now, the importance of bringing back our own culture, Hindu culture, which Nehru never wanted. Why? Anything better has to come from outside. It has to come from the West. You see, how do children react to their parents in the West, be it America or Europe or especially Britain? I mean, at times they swear at them. Not by them, but at them. Why? But our children, in many ways, still, certainly in remoter areas, still swear by their parents, not at them. Whereas in cities, you'll find that has begun to break down. Why? Western culture, oh, it's good. Why? It's foreign. So you see, this particular event, January 22nd, it was huge. It brought India together as nothing else had done, as I said. Every state began to celebrate as if it's a second Diwali or the first one of the year. The return of Lord Ram. Except this was not from 14 years in exile or from Sri Lanka, but 500 years of being oppressed and stomped on and denied. Finally, he's back. And he's back, I hope, for a very, very much longer time. Not just 500 years, but maybe 5 or 10,000 years. Because we need something like this, an example like this, to help us look after ourselves, our children, our future generations, the way we think, the way we act and behave among ourselves, and the way we act and behave among others. Now Hinduism, for instance, as that epic showed, it doesn't go looking for trouble. It doesn't want to get into fights. But if one is thrust upon you, they roll up their sleeves, get their gear together, and put up one hell of a fight. Don't push them. If they get together, all hell will break loose. That's the message. Because if nothing else, they know how to interact, they know how to do things, which is exactly what the opposition parties have been trying to destroy. I'm glad they haven't succeeded, not fully. They were on their way to success. I'm glad somebody stopped it. Because we are a nation and we must be a nation. And for that we have to come together. We've got to fight and move in the same direction all the time, not in 200 different ways. That's like pulling the whole country apart. We don't need that. Now we need our religion. Without that, there's nothing basic to hang on to. Just remember that, think about that. You need that basic religion belief. And that is what this particular event has done. It's brought us together. To understand that, look, we are one religion, one people, one nation. Not 50 different people pulling in different ways. We are one, and we have to be like that. Let's get that straight. So whoever thought of this particular idea, this particular thing, let's call it a masterstroke. The use of religion in a positive way, rather than the negativity of Christianity, the Inquisitions in Europe and so on. We don't need that. All sorts of attempts have been made. They've said, all the castes here are evil, casteism is evil, we must eradicate it. Look, casteism, I've explained, what is it? It's a group of people in a particular profession form a caste. That's all. Now, who's higher and who's lower, nobody said anything about that. You get people who keep making the same mistake. Anyway, folks, just remember, we are one nation. And this particular temple coming up has brought us together as nothing has done. Not since 1946, in 1940s or 1930s. One common cause, one common place where we can all meet. Why Nehru wanted to destroy us, I don't know. That's something he will have to answer for, as will his family. Because they're still doing it. Whether it is Rahul Gandhi or Sonia Gandhi or even Rajiv Gandhi to some extent. But Nehru, well, he must go down in history, not just as a bad prime minister or a bad leader, but as something very evil. We're trying to destroy the very basic beliefs of hundreds of millions of people and trying to keep them a colony rather than free-thinking people. Well, folks, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Have a good look at this one. Subscribe, like, pass on to your friends, relatives, groups. Ask them to pass it on. Because I think it's important. We have to come together, and we've begun to come together as nowhere other else, not since independence. There's no other way that we've got together since then. I hope this trend continues. Don't let anybody pull us apart. Thanks, folks. I know it's taken a little longer than normal, but I think it was worth it.